one area of estate planning that I think is often overlooked and that we spend a lot of time educating and discussing with our clients about is what happens to an estate plan after remarriage, if one of the spouse remarries. And I don't mean you all get divorced and then you remarry. That is an issue, that is a concern. But what happens if you all are married and one of the spouses passes away and then the surviving spouse remarries? How does that affect the estate plan? A lot of people don't think about that, right? A lot of people, either they're young and they're thinking, hey, there's no one I'd ever want to remarry, or they're older and they're thinking, oh, I'm old, how could I ever get remarried again? But it happens all the time. I'm sure you've heard of people getting remarried. Maybe your parents remarried after husband or wife or whoever passed away. Happens all the time. And it can greatly affect the estate plan. Just think about it. Let's say that, you have $1 million. Well, the way it works in most states is without any sort of prenuptial agreement or any plan in place before. I'm just going to assume there's nothing in place. One spouse has $500,000, the other spouse has the other $500,000. Then when the one spouse number one passes away, his or her $500,000 typically goes to the surviving spouse. So now that spouse has the entire $1 million. Well, because their estate plan probably just said everything to the spouse when the first spouse passes away and then everything to the kids, that's fine. But now that surviving spouse has the full $1 million, if he or she were to remarry and they didn't have any sort of prenuptial agreement, no plan in place, if they got divorced, if that surviving spouse who's now married a new husband or wife, if they get divorced, now potentially $500,000 is going to that new spouse. And now that new spouse's family is going to receive the inheritance essentially from the first spouse who passed away. And so what we try to educate our clients is, look, most people don't really want to think about their spouse remarrying if you passed away, but it happens and you never know, what could happen. Even if your spouse says, no, this is it, I would never remarry again. Once being married once or being married to you was enough. It happens. So what we say is, look, you never know what's going to happen, and we can't legally stop that spouse from remarrying. But what we can do is we can say, look, in this example where there's $1 million, the $500,000, that is yours. We can't do anything about that. If you want to go get remarried and then you get divorced, well, that spouse, that surviving or that new husband or wife could potentially take half of that $500,000. But the $500,000 that was the spouse who passed away, that spouse wants to make sure that doesn't go to a new spouse. He or she wants to make sure that his $500,000 is used for his spouse or for his kids or her kids. So what we would say is, okay, look, if I die and I've got $500,000 and you, my beautiful wife, if you go remarry, that's fine. But in order for you to have access to my $500,000, I want you to have to get a prenuptial agreement with any future spouse so that my $500,000 remains untouched and that my $500,000 goes to my kids. And this is something that you can definitely do. And it's a great thing, it's a great way to do it, because a lot of people, many people are uncomfortable about prenuptial agreements. And so this is a way where you can say, your spouse can say to their new spouse, look, I wouldn't do the prenuptial agreement, but my spouse who passed away, he or she's making me do it. So hopefully not too complex, but it's definitely something that you want to think about. If you've got an estate plan, you want to speak with your attorney or whoever drafted it for you and say, hey, look, is there protection in here so that if one of us dies and the other one remarries, how's that going to affect our estate plan? Because typically what I see is if all you did is you just had a plan that says everything that I have goes to my spouse when I die, and then when she dies, everything to our kids, that's what most people have. Well, that might not protect the assets from if my spouse remarries. And you definitely want to make sure there's some protection there just in case they get divorced. So something to think about if you've got a plan or if you're doing a plan, because remarriage after one of the spouses passes away is a huge issue. But unfortunately, you can really do a lot of things to protect yourself from it.